Good afternoon. The story I'm going to tell today is a story of my own failure, but it also involves another person. That's my 22-year-old daughter. I've written this story in the form of a letter. It's a writing technique called epistolary. If you've read the book The Color Purple, you'll be familiar with this kind of writing. Dear Tasha, let me begin by telling you that your father and I had the best intentions when we became your parents. And I believe all foster parents and adoptive parents have good intentions. But we were also naive, and that was perhaps my first failure. It was my idea that we would become foster parents. I think there's always one parent in the duo that has this great idea, and my great idea came from a book called White Oleander. I read this book, and it was a story of a teenage girl who lived in foster families who were just plain bad. They were self-centered, they were abusive, they were just terrible. I read that book, and I thought to myself, I can do better than that. I can be a good foster parent. And so we applied, went through the classes, and became foster parents. While I was happy being the mother of a son, I really wanted to parent a daughter. I wanted to have a young girl, young woman in my life who I could raise up to be strong and fierce, and I could just see this relationship lasting all of my entire life. And fostering was the best option for us to get to that point. The details, Tasha, of the first 8 years of your life came from a fat stack of social work notes. You were born in Pikeville, Kentucky. That's where the Hatfields and McCoys had their famous feuds for. And your parents brought you to Michigan for your grandmother to raise you. I'm not sure why, because she only had a 6th grade education and she was illiterate. So you bounced from house to house, moving almost every year. The social work notes told us that often you had to sleep on the floor in your houses because there was no furniture. You were covered in coats. Neighbors reported to the social work office that you were eating food out of garbage cans. And you and your brothers, you spoke a feral language. It was because nobody spoke to you at home. Nobody taught you the words that you needed to know. And so you spoke that language. When you finally went to kindergarten, you basically slept at your desk. You were sick and tired, and school was a safe place for you to be. Your teacher had one goal for you in kindergarten for that first year. It wasn't to learn the alphabet or to learn your numbers. It was just to make eye contact with the staff in the school and to recognize her as your teacher. They called protective services often and tried to get you removed from your home, but it took about 3 years before you were actually removed. And while reports were being filed and your grandmother was sent to parenting classes, your uncles and your grandmother's boyfriends messed around with you. That little chunk of flesh missing from the top of your ear, the one that I used to tell you was where a fairy bit you because you were so sweet. Well, actually, one of your uncles pierced your ear with some fishing line, and it caused an infection in your ear that cost you the top of your ear. But that really was just the start of it. The notes were filled with neglect and sexual abuse allegations. When your grandmother lost her toe to diabetes and was in the hospital, a strange man came to pick you up at school. And he just casually told the teacher that he thought you probably had been tired in school that day, extra tired, because you had tossed and turned all night in bed, kicking him and thrashing. She called protective services again, and you were removed from her home for good and came to our house, arriving on a February evening with a great big black garbage bag full of everything you owned. I was certain, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that I could fix what had happened to you, that I could right the wrongs of your childhood and make up for lost experiences. Your dad and I, we had big hearts, and we had plenty of room and love for you. And I knew that if there was any one family that could help you, it was ours. And we could make up for the lost years of your life and help you. I was willing to do whatever it took to make you whole again. In retrospect, it was naive for me to think that I could help repair the kind of damage that had happened to you. Our personalities are fixed even before we're born and really developed in the first few years of our life, in the earliest years. And by the time you came to us, your personality was set. I tried to make you happy and show you love, but the darkness that flowed through you was thick and impermeable. There were happy times. I look back on the first few years of our life and I smile. You were funny and fearless. You came to our house the first night, even though you'd never met us, and you told me you wanted to stay forever. And I told you, Tasha, you'd always have a place with us. You were an empty vessel, and I was going to fill it. I had great expectations for you. I wanted you to be good in school. I wanted you to have good friends. I wanted you to graduate from high school and maybe even go to college and have a good job one day and live in a nice house. There were expectations like my mother had of me, not that much different. But I had it fixed in my head what success looked like, and I wasn't going to let either of us fail. If abuse is a learned behavior that carries on from generation to generation, then maybe forced success is its own kind of abuse. Perhaps I was too much for you. My expectations were beyond your capacity. But if I didn't believe you could accomplish great things and push you toward them, then who would? Tasha, you were not only my daughter, you were my mission. I was relentless in my pursuit to teach you how to navigate the new life we'd given you, to teach you, to help you fit in and make you into a normal middle-class child. I wanted to help you forget all the bad things that had happened to you, and I thought an abundant good life could negate and balance out the bad life you'd had for the 8 years of your life. So we showered you with what we thought would help you develop: swimming lessons, Girl Scouts, gymnastics, summer camp, travel with the family. We went all kinds of places together, and we did everything I thought would help you understand and see. When I thought your school wasn't doing a good job in teaching you, I did school of choice application and moved you to a suburban school with more affluent people who were more like us, and I thought that that might be the answer to your problems. And as much as I hate shopping, I took you shopping to the mall and bought you more clothes than any girl could ever dream of. In the winter, you and I went up north skiing together. So much fun. And I taught you everything I thought you needed to know: to make your bed, to set the table, to just be a regular, normal kid. You were baptized and you had your first communion. I wanted you to be spiritual as well as being our kid. I corrected your grammar, and I was determined by repetition, trial and error, and just plain tenacity that you'd be okay one day. When you came to us, you acted like a normal 8-year-old. You were so cute. I loved you so much. I called you my brown-eyed girl. You were silly and charming. And I couldn't get enough of you, and I couldn't do enough to rescue you. But what I failed to acknowledge was that your genetic makeup, the house that you lived in that was filled with lead paint, the abuse and the daily grind of poverty, it took away your ability to be my normal kid. Your brain wasn't fed when it needed nourishing the most. We knew you had cognitive issues. You were in special ed from kindergarten on. But when I asked to see your IQ test, and your IQ was 47, I really couldn't believe it. I demanded a retest. I was fairly certain that you'd been tested on a bad day by an incompetent school counselor. And so the second test came back, and your IQ remained the same. This was just one more problem that I was sure we could overcome. Tasha, I never gave up on you, but over time, it became clear that the change I so deeply desired wasn't going to happen. It was resignation more than anything else. We both grew tired of me trying to fix you. How is it that I couldn't accept you for who you were, the person that you were born to be? I don't know where the idea came from that I could fix you and make your life whole again, and that I could make you like me. That idea was seriously flawed and ruined much of our life together. Why couldn't I just love you?